Applications are now being accepted for the One Ohana Fund, which will help those who lost a loved one in the August wildfires. It comes at a time when some lawmakers are expressing frustration, saying the Green administration is racing through money in response to the Maui fires. Governor Green joins us now once again to talk about that and much more. Good morning. Welcome back, Governor.
Thank you. Good morning.
I want to talk about the One Ohana Fund first because the application period just opened on Friday. Do you have a number as to how many applications you may have received? And maybe if we can remind our viewers the help that is available.
Sure. So it's for individuals who lost a loved one in Maui. There were 101 fatalities that broke our hearts. So all of those individual families will be eligible to apply and get $1.5 million of immediate help to settle their claim. Also for individuals that had severe injuries. And let me just take on the elephant in the room right away. We're not spending money quickly. We're caring for families who lost loved ones. It's heartless to think that we wouldn't do that. Also, a settlement of this kind not only will get people resources much earlier, they won't have to wait 3 to 5 years so they can build back their homes and build back their lives, but also it will prevent lawsuits, which would cost far more. So unfortunately, the people who made those comments don't know what the heck they're talking about. That's one thing. Then there's resources for people in housing, because do I look like a guy that's going to walk away from thousands of families that would otherwise become homeless? There's just no way. So it's difficult, it is a challenge, and anyone who has studied these kind of crises, these disasters, know that it takes a long time to recover, and you're better off to get people good housing. You're better off to stabilize their lives. Otherwise, they suffer, and the costs just persist forever. So we have a much better approach than maybe has been seen elsewhere. But I think that people should be a little bit more thoughtful before they make such comments like putting people in tent cities or trailers. There are high suicide rates in trailer parks. There are high suicide rates when you put people in tents. You make people into refugees. They can't really work. I mean, none of those things are consistent with our values.
And I think that the comments that you're referring to, some of the lawmakers are expressing frustration because they say, for example, money being used to put people into hotels, that money, the deadline is kind of running out, and they say that it's double the amount that they expected to be spent.
Well, I'm not really worried about their frustration. I'm worried about the fact that some people have been for 6 months living in a hotel and suffering and struggling, and they've lost a loved one or they lost all their possessions. Let's not worry so much about the feelings of a couple legislators who decide to put their needs ahead of, and I mean their psychological needs, ahead of the people that really got devastated. So I just expect them to be supportive, and I think that they will be. Most of them come to understand what's necessary. Now, what is happening, though? At one point, there were 820 families that were deemed FEMA ineligible. In other words, we have to cover the cost. I went to Washington, I made the case. That number's already dropped to 555. So that's about 250 some families now that will be FEMA eligible. In other words, FEMA will cover the cost of that. But there are still going to be some people that are ineligible, people who are COFA migrants, people who were migrant workers. Do we want to make them homeless? Do we want them to be on the streets? No. Do we want to have to carry so much of their cost when they have social disasters? No. So it's really an incomplete assessment when someone says the cost is going up to house people, because if you don't pay that cost, believe me, you pay it when they end up in the hospital. You pay it when they end up on unemployment. You pay it when they end up in total disarray with their lives. So we are being very careful, but that's an absolutely incomplete assessment of what goes on with a crisis or a disaster. And when you have a moment in a hearing where people just lob little hand grenades, it's not helpful to the recovery. So I'm going to take care of the people who lost loved ones. I'm going to house people, and then we're going to build houses. We've already bought 450 units, of which a lot of that will be covered by FEMA. I think 200 of the 450 units will be covered by disaster relief funds. But these are the processes that have to happen.
And part of the efforts with the housing over in West Maui is the short-term rentals, your efforts there.
Yes.
You did set an April 1 deadline. That's in, what, 4 weeks?
Yes.
That a possible ban on these vacation rentals in that area could happen.
Right.
What do you need to see, or what would you like to see for that ban not to be put in place?
I'd like to see about 850 additional units, and to the extent that the arguments were cogent in the hearings, yes, we want to move people from hotels to long-term rentals. And the short-term rental market is a challenge for all of us. It has to be addressed. In fact, it has to be shifted. There are 31,000 short-term rentals on Maui. And 50+%, 52% are owned by mainland people, which is okay, except that our people need housing now. And we can rent these short-term rentals at a much better rate than the hotels, which is what we're doing. We already have over 1,500 units that FEMA has available to them. But as I said earlier, some are FEMA eligible families and some are not FEMA eligible families. So I need to put people in there. And I'm willing to have us pay extra resources into that setting to stabilize people's lives so that they come out of hotels. That's all correct, but it's a large process. Let me run this so people understand it. Phase 1 was getting people out of shelters into hotels. Phase 2 is getting people into long-term rentals. Phase 3 is getting people into transitional housing, and then Phase 4 is into permanent housing. So it's going to be like this, a big curve. We'll get a lot of resources from HUD. I went and saw the director of HUD, saw the president, and we talk about these things. But these are not quick fixes. You don't just flip a switch and fix these problems.
All right, one last question has to do with housing. Yes. Kauhale, you have more efforts underway to build more kauhale. How many units are you looking at by when across the state?
Well, that's a huge project, right? And so I am thankful to the legislature for funding Kauhale last year. That's fantastic. And John Mizuno is on the job now. He's doing a great job. We opened 2 Kauhale just recently. We're looking at a huge number of additional Kauhale. He was over on Kauai and Maui. We just got $6.9 million extra to build Kauhale on Maui, which will help with the recovery there. We also are going to open a Kauhale in Iwilei soon in partnership with Mayor Blangiardi, and his team has been terrific. The picture people are seeing right now is exactly what it will look like. Another 50 units is what I believe. Over time, one of the spreadsheets I have has 1,418 Kauhale units. Sometimes it's one person, sometimes maybe 2 people could go in them. This takes a huge bite out of chronic homelessness, which again is very important because people die 30 years earlier if they're on the street without shelter, and their cost is about $80,000 per person per year if they're unsheltered on the street. That cost drops 70%. So all of these things, once people get a roof over their head, all of these things are systematic approaches to problems, and I'm trying to minimize all of the politics, but I'm grateful that the state is generous and compassionate, but I'm going to ask for a little bit more of that treatment in some of these legislative hearings because we take care of our people. We are going to treat them like family no matter what, and I'm going to enlist all the support across the world to do it. But people have to be patient because it's going to take a bit of time.
All right, Governor Green, thank you so much once again for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.